what I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have.
I've had rainbows in my clouds. And the thing to do, it seems to me, is to prepare yourself so that you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud.
We all really, really love one another. Deep down, we all love one another, and we need to get back to that.
Hi, welcome to the Authentically You podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, and I'm back for another episode. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, this is a show all about people doing authentic things and amazing things in our world. And it's very exciting because I always love to meet new people. And I'm very excited today to have someone who's going to be at our Lead and Empower Her She Talks, and that is Shannon Nealon. Shannon, welcome to the show. And I'm super excited. Shannon is one of our women veterans. She joined the Marine Corps in 2017 as an 0811 artillery cannoneer crew member, and she later became the first female in history to pass the section chief's course. And during her time in the military, Shannon realized that people with mental health issues have them both in the military and civilian population, and these need to be addressed. And this is how the Happy Bean Project was born. So Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So
I get super awkward with interactions, but yeah, I'm really thankful to be here talking to you. So thank you for having me.
I'm super excited because I want to talk about all sorts of stuff with you. I want to first talk about the Happy Bean Project. And actually, I found you on Instagram. I started stalking you nicely because I saw that you were a woman veteran. You had a business. You were doing service projects. And I was like, what is going on here? I want to check this out. I don't even know how I stumbled on you, but I think I'm constantly looking to support women veterans and women in business. So yeah, I promise you it wasn't like a creepy stalk at all. It was more like, ooh, what's going on here? And then I was like all over your social media stuff. And then of course I reached out for Lead and Empower Her because I saw that you were in Texas and we were having a thing in Texas. And I was like, just maybe she'll be free. Maybe she'll be part of this. So I'm super excited that we have made this connection. So tell our listeners about the Happy Bean Project and what it is.
So the Happy Bean Project is a nonprofit, and it's a nonprofit coffee shop. We're funded through coffee. So all of our outreach is funded by the coffee shop that we have in Lake Jackson. So we have a funding coffee shop trailer that basically is like a little mini Starbucks. We have, blended drinks, frappuccinos, all the fun stuff. And then every time people come through our shop, their coffee purchase is a donation towards our project. So that allows consistent funding for all the outreach that we do to help people with mental health issues. And also the coffee shop, aside from monetary funding, it also allows people to drop off clothing donations. So we get hundreds and hundreds of clothing donations every single week. And we bring the clothing donations to the people that we serve during our outreach efforts. And we also serve coffee, and we provide mental health resources, and we just form relationships with people that are honestly tend to be forgotten about. And so, yeah, that's kind of the main mission of the Happy Bean Project is, first of all, to get people to talk about mental health, and then also to actually make an effort to go out and do something about it.
And, I love this. As you mentioned, you spend a lot of time serving the homeless. And my mother, that was a big mission of hers. She actually served a lot of homeless when she was alive. And she would bring socks and toothpaste and, anything she could think about. And she spent a lot of time doing that. And I remember her saying something similar to what you said, is the people who are forgotten. And she used to talk about that these were people that were forgotten, and especially, and of course she catered a lot to the younger generation, the youth who were homeless. And so, this is near and dear to my heart because I didn't realize it till much later in life, the impact she had on these people. When she passed away, I think there was 300 people at her funeral. I think what you're doing is so important. And I think, mental health is something that it's always been kind of a dirty word growing up, at least around me. It was we don't talk about mental health. If someone would say, oh, go see a therapist. That was like a bad thing. You didn't go see a therapist. And as I got older in life, I realized how prevalent our mental health is, how important it is, and especially for women, how I feel like it's not being addressed in the way that it should be, just from that perspective. So I want to dig a little deeper on why the topic mental health. You talk in your website about in the military, you realize the importance of that. So can we dig deeper on what you mean when you think about this?
So I have always struggled with my personal mental health, and also my brother has severe mental health problems. So it's very near and dear to my heart as far as the impact that mental health makes on a family. And then when I was in the military, I really started noticing how the boredom, the lack of purpose, when there's nothing, going on overseas, can really affect people's mental health, and how, they treat each other, and how the camaraderie is not as prevalent when, there's like mental health issues within a group. And especially for female military members, which I don't usually heavily get into talking about how really bad off it was. I try to see things from all perspectives, but after most recent events, it's really shined through how bad it really is for female military members. So as many people know, there was a bunch of heroes that gave their life overseas recently, and two of those military members were females. And there is actually one female who had posted a picture the day before she gave her life for our country, and military men, which are supposed to have our back. And I'm not saying that this is all military men, because I've met a lot of very, very great military men while I was serving. But I'm saying in general, the overall outlook on a female Marine is that we're not really meant to be there, that we're just there for one thing, and that's for their pleasure to make sexual comments about us or whatever, degrade us and like put us down. We only got our rank because we did this sexual favor. You know what I mean? So the constant degrading of military females, I didn't really let it affect me that much. There were times, yes, there was times that it definitely affected me. And I actually did have to speak out for myself 2 different times while I served. At the cost of speaking out means you're going to be pretty much shunned from the group. But no one else was going to speak out for me, so I had to speak out for myself. And it just really shows with the recent events how this is actually a very, very serious problem. And I don't think that people realize how much of an impact on mental health for these female Marines and female military members, that it really does actually, it has a big, big impact on them. So yeah, sorry, I kind of rambled.
No, I was going to ask you, mention one of them posted, was it on Twitter or something like that? The day before they died? Do you remember what it was that they posted?
Yes. Okay, so she posted a picture on her Instagram, and a lot of military guys were writing horrible comments about her. But this is before she passed away, saying like, "What's her OnlyFans account? I'd like to tap that. Like, she should get back into the kitchen." Just completely horrible, degrading things. And the internet, you can pretty much say whatever, but it really shows how these guys actually are thinking in reality. They might not say stuff as heavily in reality, which they do say it in person as well, because I experienced it. But it's going to be way more, they're going to be way more intense about it on the internet, and it's just absolutely horrible. And then the next day, she gave the ultimate sacrifice, and now all of them are backtracking and realizing finally realizing how, excuse my language, how fucking horrible and degrading that is to say to someone that is supposed to be your sister in arms.
Yeah. I think it's definitely I think in the past it's been something that we don't want to talk about, but I think it's so important. And as you know, one of our goals, obviously one of my missions and vision is to support all veterans, but in particular, we really focus on women veterans and that transition out. And, something I really don't ever hear addressed, we talk about them getting jobs or, resumes or interviews, but we don't talk about the mental health side and how it affects them, and what they're coming back to. And I think that's so crucial. It seems to be, as you mentioned, you've been addressing this for a while, but now it's actually starting to be addressed because of these really unfortunate, horrible accidents that have been happening over there, especially with the women who were killed recently. And I think it's such an important thing. I know for me that back in the day, if I thought about going to see a therapist, one, I probably would have, been made fun of or shunned, or people would have thought there was something wrong with me. But I myself thought, well, I'm a total failure if I have to go see a therapist. There's obviously something wrong with me. And I think, and my mentality on that has totally changed, obviously. That was a very young mentality. But, let's talk about women and the stereotypes and how do we get ourselves to good mental health. I mean, I'm sure you have some techniques. I'm sure you have some processes you've used. I have some. Let's talk about that. How do we get ourselves out of that spiraling dark hole, especially when there's not a lot of support, like what you were dealing with, where you didn't have a lot of support and you were having to speak up for yourself.
So, and I mean, I give this advice a lot too, because a lot of girls reach out to me when they first join the military and they ask for advice. And, at the end of the day, so women are sexual beings just the same as men are sexual beings. And men can talk about sex and have sex and go to work the next day and be still respected. Their rank is still the same. Everything about them is that no one looks at them differently. Whereas a woman in the military, if she goes and has sex and then goes to work the next day, she's degraded, looked down upon it. And that causes it's kind of a taboo thing to talk about, because even talking about it makes guys lose their minds. Because I'm like, you know what I mean? So the advice that I give to women is, okay, you probably are a pretty driven there's kind of a type of Marine and military member, likes to drink, likes to fight, alpha personality, likes to have sex. It's just, that's kind of in general the type of person that a military member is, whether that's a good or a bad thing. But for the male world, it's not a big deal, and no one brings it up, and they can literally do whatever they want. It's not a big deal. But for the female world, I tell them, just so you know, every single thing you do, any person you look at, if you hook up with anybody, if you dress a certain way, you're going to be completely degraded. There's just no getting around it. Yeah. So you just have to not give a fuck. And that's the thing that's hard to do, even for me, because I would say in general, I have come to terms with the fact that I'm a sexual person, and that's okay. I'm a woman, and I like to have sex, and that's okay with me. But
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, let's just address that for a second.
But even saying something like that, it's it's just that people's automatic reaction
I think that's
my goodness, she just said that.
It's so funny because it is a very double standard. I mean, just to jump in here a minute, let's just talk about this whole sex thing for a second. Okay. I know we're going to talk about the totally uncomfortable moment, but I mean, how crazy is it to think that as women, we can't say that we enjoy sex or would like to have it. I mean, come on, it's not like it's our duty and we must have it and we cannot enjoy it. I mean,
right.
And, if you talk about this double standard, I mean, it's in so many industries. As a woman who worked at high level CEO level, yeah, like I had to dress a certain way. I had to behave a certain way. I could never have had a relationship with anyone in an organization that I worked with because it would have been considered such a like taboo thing. And,
Yes.
you know, I agree with you is that in general, if we look at women in general, like if you're considered someone who enjoys to have, you know, you like sex or you want to have sex, you are considered like, you know, sleazy or a tramp or whatever. Like, you know, what's wrong? I was thinking, and I'm not trying
It's absolutely horrible.
yeah, like I'm not trying to say like, oh, you know, it's just like why it's a great thing of you're saying is why is it okay for guys to always do it? Same thing. If you're a CEO and you slept with someone in the organization, they're like, yeah, good for you, buddy. She was hot. But if it's reversed, they're like, what a slut. You know, I mean, let's just
Right.
So I was always
You shouldn't work here.
Right. I
He's
was
causing
always
distractions
aware of
in
that.
the office.
I mean, in my younger years, I've been married for 18 years now, but in my younger years, I was super aware, like, don't wear anything that shows too much cleavage. You know, make sure I'm wearing black. Put my hair in a bun so I look more older, you know. Anything I could do because don't look anything. And of course, this totally side thing. We're totally getting off sidetrack, but I don't care. You know, my book, I wrote a book and it's, you know, with another Marine, my colleague, Dr. Karen Walker. And the side thing says, why can't I wear pink and be the president? And like my whole rant in this book is like, why can't I just embrace my femininity and be me? Why do I have to behave like a dude in order to get some type of respect when really I'm a woman and I just want to be a woman? And so as you talk about that in the military, and I understand that the military, I mean, you guys are dealing obviously on a whole different level. I mean, you guys are dealing with war. You're dealing with, you know, countries that obviously we've seen what's happening in Afghanistan. I mean, obviously that's a whole different level. And I get that. Obviously, like you guys are not running around in bikinis out there or anything like that. You're fully set up in the gear that you need to do your job. But I always say that I don't think women leadership is better or worse than men. It's different. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that difference. So I know it's a total sidetrack, but as you said that, I just thought to myself, like, yeah, this is so taboo. Like if a woman says, hey, I enjoy sex, people are like, oh my God, you slut.
I know.
You know? But if a guy's, you know, hitting it up left and right, people are like, oh, you go get it. You're an animal, buddy. You know, I mean, I've heard it because I played, you know, sports at a high level and I was around, you know, male and female athletes, and that's how it was addressed. So I mean, I just have to jump in with you on that because I agree. Like, there's a stereotype, and you know, why is it that you know? But I would give the same advice to a young woman going into an executive position. Like, hey, you know, you gotta same thing. You know, don't hook up with anyone at your office. You know, keep it clean. You know, just all of that stuff because if not, you get a reputation. So
yeah. And I try to give the advice as, you know, do what you want. But just know that that's unfortunately the way that the culture is. And if you let it bother you, then, you know, but I don't think that especially with the girls that come to me, I know that if I tell them don't do that, that it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Okay. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like it happened. It's happened every single time. You know, when you're forming really close relationships with people that you serve, you meet some of your best friends for life, and that is true. When you put males and females together, there's going to be romantic things that come about. Now, that is separate from work, and that's the thing is that there's like this hyper focus on when there is some sort of like sexual relationship going on, that it's like now all of a sudden they're not good at their job, and that's what needs to stop. Is people need to realize that people are humans. It's going to happen no matter what, and just let people live their life, and if it's not affecting their job, which it's not, someone having a relationship is not affecting their job. There are relationships that can affect people's jobs. I agree with that 100%. But in general, it's a separate thing. You know what I mean? Having sex and going to work are two separate things. One's in your personal life and one is in your work life. Well, so, I mean, yes, that just needs to be separate.
I would say that like majority of the population does that, right? You know, they have their separate life and then they go to work. So why are we, you know, it's not like I can't have my relationship and then go to work and do my job. Okay. If it's the one time I'll say it could be weird, obviously high level ranking person with one of their employees, right?
Yeah.
That would be a conflict of interest because of that.
Yes.
But I think that, and here's the thing, I always say this, like, okay, if someone day in and day out is just hounding you, they're in your head, they're just, they're harassing you, you eventually are going to start to believe it. When I worked in a job, took over a big job, and I had the head person, they would call me every day. And they would tell me I suck at my job and that they were going to fire me soon. And they would harass me and they would do all this stuff. And every day in and out until I finally got to a point that I called HR and I said, listen, I'm not mentally well because I've been harassed day in and day out. I'm having panic attacks. I'm having anxiety. My hair's falling out because I'm so stressed. I'm going to the doctor and they're telling me that if I don't quit my job soon, I'm probably going to have a heart attack at a young age because I'm so stressed out. And I had never said this to anyone, but I remember I said to the HR person, I said, I'm giving my notice. I am not mentally well because of this. And it took a lot of like horrible things to get up to this where I was like super sick and ill. And they, of course, surprisingly took that very serious and obviously went in and made some changes and so forth. But I remember, like, I thought I was having a mental breakdown because I'd been harassed day in and day out. And even though it was completely untrue, if someone tells you enough, eventually your psyche is gonna start to think that, Yeah. And I can imagine if you're working in a hostile environment, military or something else, as women, we have to work twice as hard to get the job. We have to go along with the stereotypes. We have to suck it up, right? I don't know how many coaches and people said, like, there's no crying, suck it up, And so we come out, and I think probably one of the first things I did was that I don't ask for help. Because that would be weakness if I asked for help. So instead of saying, hey, I just really need to go get some help, I didn't do that. I just let myself practically run myself into the ground and almost kill myself off before I realized that I actually needed help. And when I think about women, veterans transitioning out of the military, does this ring true with you guys? I mean, you guys are these tough, awesome women kicking ass in the military, and you get out, and probably the last thing you're thinking is that you want to tell someone that you could really use some help. I mean, I don't know. Am I guessing, or what do you think?
So I mean, my transition thankfully was fairly smooth. So I obviously cannot really tell you the answer to that question, but I'll have to talk to some female veterans and reach out to them and see how their transition has been, because I haven't even really thought about like the fact that it might be pretty hard for a female military member to transition out of because it's hard for anybody. Yeah. I mean, I think you get you get 30 days paid time off to try to find a job. I mean, 30 days to find a job, like a career, is a little hard to do. If you're going to school, here in Texas, you make, I think, $1,200 a month if you're going full time. And I mean, $1,200 a month is anywhere is not really enough to live off of. But I mean, still, it's really great that, most people have to go in debt to go to school. So at least, I'm definitely not complaining about that benefit at all whatsoever, because that's an amazing benefit. Yeah. But you know what I mean? As far as the main issue with transitioning out of the military for females and males is that you're babysat the entire time, and they don't teach you any sort of real life skills. They don't teach you interviewing. They do not teach you how to make a resume properly. They have this TRS system set up, which is Transition Readiness Seminar, I want to say. I could be wrong on that, but it's Transition Readiness something. They do have that in place. However, it's a skip through thing, and that's not something that you should just do 30 days before you get out. Now I'm going to learn how to make a resume. Now I'm going to learn how to do interviews. That's something that's like a 4-year thing that you need to be implementing from the beginning. So I always thought that the military, they do boards to get promoted. Mm-hmm. And from my experience with my board, you walk in, they ask you, like, where's the right ribbon placement? And you just say, the right ribbon placement is this. And then they ask you, what's this knowledge question? And then you answer the knowledge question, and then you go. That's not how an interview is in real life at all whatsoever. I mean, in an interview in real life, you're having to sell yourself, and you're going to have to explain why you should be promoted to that, if it's a military world, why you should be promoted to that rank. Not just answer 2 questions and you get it right and then you get promoted to the next rank.
Right.
So that's where I think that the military fails a lot of people as far as getting them ready for transitioning, because it's just, I mean, you don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay for your food. You don't have to do really anything. And then you have to go from that for 4 years of your life getting completely babysat to, okay, I have to find a career and take care of a family and take care of this and take care of that. And it's really sink or swim. Like, there's a lot of them that do not make it because they needed that extra guidance and they did not get it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I especially think about people who may have been in for 20 years, you know, and I mean, that's like been their life. And then the transition is, I mean, I can imagine, I work with a lot of women who are just transitioning after working in something 20 years, right? Or like a lot of male spouses will say, okay, well, now my husband's retired. Now I'm going to go have a career, but they've been home for 20 years. And that's a massive transition of them just like trying to figure out life. And
just talk like a normal person.
Right.
Because after 20 years, I don't even know if they know how to communicate like a normal person.
I always tease my veteran friends because they'll always say ma'am, and I know that's required in the military. And I'm always like, listen, I'm not old enough to be a ma'am yet. Is there anything else you can call me but ma'am? Like, I feel like I need to be at least in my 60s to be a ma'am, you know? And I always tease them about that. And I know that's just like ingrained in or whatever and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think when we look at women and you know, the military in particular, but then also just in life in general, we have all these different transitions in our life, right? You know, we have some women may be coming out of the military, some women may be having children, and that's a transition, adding a family, or maybe their kids have gone off school, or maybe they've just recently got divorced, and that's a transition. Like, we have all these different transitions in our lives. And I think it can affect our mental health. And I think that we have to be really proactive. I think probably one of the most important things I did was starting surrounding myself with women that I felt comfortable with, that were having those struggles. And it wasn't like, you know, I was like, oh gosh, you know, because if you read my book, I'll have to send you my book. Now I'm going to make you read it. If you read my book, it talks in there that I wanted to have the perfect life, right? I wanted everyone to think that there was nothing wrong with me. Like the commercials, right? Like, my house was perfectly white and there was no laundry and everything was gorgeous. That is so not true. And I remember thinking how exhausting it was because I didn't want anyone to know that I had any struggles. And I just think that that's something that we so have to debunk on so many levels. And I love that the Happy Beam Project is out there just straight up talking about mental health and offering help and, you know, going to the people that nobody wants to go to sometimes because, you know, that could be a reason why they're out there, you know, is that mental health struggle. And I love that this is at the forefront of what you're talking about and that you can be honest about what's happening. What's your mindset in the military? A lot of people don't want to talk about whether it be military or their job, like what's really going on. And, you know, that honesty, I appreciate that because it just helps you think. And I know someone else out there is listening to this going, yeah, like that's me. I was there. I get that. Okay, I wasn't the only person that was struggling with that. So, you know, I know we talked about women in the military, but for women in general, if you could give some tips, one or two or whatever, about, you know, maybe something that helps you, whether it was get through mental health or transitioning out or being a mom, because I know you have a daughter, right?
Yes.
Or even a business, whatever you want to pick. If you can think about something that you might want to share with the women about that, because at our conference, we're going to have moms, CEOs, women veterans, business owners, you name it there. And so you have a long list of things that you're doing. So what's maybe a few tips, something you could give to our listeners?
My number one tip is to be outspoken and not to be afraid to speak your mind. And, you know, that it has gotten me in some trouble sometimes, you know, because I'm not afraid to say what I think in the moment. So, I mean, I've had to learn for me personally, kind of take a second, kind of think about what I'm going to say, then say it, but definitely not where I hold back completely and don't say what's on my mind. Because I think, especially for women, our opinions we're very scared to say our opinions because sometimes they're not taken seriously. Actually, pretty often they're not taken seriously. So I think the more that we can learn to be outspoken and properly communicate in a direct way, like what we really want and feel and think is right, then that really can take you so many places. Because I mean, so many people in general, not just females, are just afraid to speak up and actually do something. So just, I mean, that's my advice is actually go if you have an idea, talk about it, get it out there, and then do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Be honest, be transparent. And that's not very prevalent in our society today, honesty and transparency. But I'm with you. I think that if women can start to realize that we don't have to be perfect, it's not going to, I mean, like, shocker, okay, for everyone who's listening, shocker, we're not perfect, except don't tell my husband. I've told him I am perfect. No. But that we're not perfect and it's okay. And, you know, my biggest thing is that I used to have to be like, okay, it's okay that, like, the laundry's not done and my house is not perfectly clean. And, you know, the other day, I can't even remember what I did, but I jokingly go, oh, I am, like, winning at this mom thing, because it was some, like, total flop thing that I totally missed. And we laughed about it, but I was like, winning as a mom right now, because that was really good. And being able to laugh at ourselves, right? You know, and just be like, I mean, the other day, I definitely had my shirt on inside out for a good half of the day. And I was like,
that just comes with being a mom.
I was so tired. Like, I was totally clueless. And then I'm like in the store and I look down and I see the tags on the side and I'm like, oh my God, I've had this on for half a day. You know, I mean, I always joke like, oh, you're lucky. Like, I ended up getting all my clothes on today. Okay, great. You know, and I even had a friend say to me, we were talking about anxiety and depression and what she was struggling with. And I was like, yeah, me too. And she's like, no, not you. No, you don't struggle with that. I was like, girl, you do.
You're like, yes, I do.
Come join me in my shower and you'll see the struggle. You know, as I'm weeping in my shower.
The shower's the best place to cry, because then you don't have to worry about ruining anything.
Exactly. So we were joking. I said, come join me in my shower. You'll see a different Julie on all levels. But you know, I love your honesty and I love what you're doing. I mean, it's amazing. I'm so excited that you're going to be at Lead and Empower Her with us. And then I always tell them, you know, once you join the crew, man, now I got you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Is there still the trapeze or it's called trapeze artist?
Yeah, Christine Van Loo. Yeah, she's an aerialist.
Like just that title right there, it tells you that you're a badass bitch. Like, I'm an aerialist.
Yeah, like and I think she's close to my age, around 43. I don't want to, Christina, if you're listening, I'm not trying to age you, but I think you're close to my age. Girl, when I hit 40, nothing worked right anymore. Like, I got a new type of walk because, you know, once it's broke, it stays broke. And so, you know, here she is like flinging from the ceiling in her 40s and I'm like,
how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm like, dang it. Like, I can ride my bike. Is that impressive? Like, and I just did like 5 loads of laundry. Like, how impressive is that? I can throw it in the air. Like, so anyways, I'm excited because Christine was like, so I'm thinking about doing a few tricks. Is that okay? I'm like, girl, you
can do all the tricks.
You're going to climb up on a thing and fly around and make it look easy. We are going to be impressed with whatever you do. Like, if I just tried to climb the rope, I would be like,
I was jaw dropped. Like, when you sent me that video, like, I just literally sat here, right, actually, thought, and I watched it, and I was just dropped the whole time. I'm like, wow, I really get to see her in real life.
I know. And of course, she's an Olympic gymnast as well. And so, which means, this is what it means. Okay, I'm like almost 6'1". So when I'm standing next to her, it means I'm going to look like Goliath. And she's going to look like this beautiful little petite thing. And so I'm going to have to stand like a little distance away so I don't look like this giant.
You're definitely like Goliath. You are very beautiful.
Oh my gosh. So this is going to be fun. So if you guys are listening right now, obviously we have Lead and Empower Her coming up soon. Let's see here if I can get all the dates right. So October 2nd is Phoenix, Arizona. November 6th is going to be Houston, Texas, which Shannon's going to be at. And then in Panama City, Florida is going to be December 5th. So go to www.leadandempowerher.com to get your tickets. And Shannon, thank you so much for being on the show. And as I always say, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.